We're back. You are chatting with John P. Today, I'm going to be talking about some very cool watches that I believe are selling or listed at just absolute steal prices on the internet today. Now, I will say that none of these watches are available currently at delraywatch.com. All of these watches are available at independent sources on the internet, which I will give you in the video and links to these listings in the description below, but please take these with a grain of salt. Make sure to do your homework on these sellers, look at the listings, look at the pictures. I've gone through them. I all think that they all look pretty good to me, but I've not held the watches. I've not done business with all of these people, so please do your homework. But once again, I think they're all really great numbers and great deals that you can buy right now on the internet. And please don't forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it, and it keeps me going during these times where every celebrity that's been kicked off normal TV is now on YouTube, and YouTube is really showing favoritism towards the Ellen DeGenereses of the world. So please help me so that I can keep making these videos for you and keep trying to deliver as much value as I can. So let's start it off with an absolute steal of a deal, a vintage Rolex chronograph, a 6234 for only $23,000. This is unbelievable. This price is almost half what these normally go for. The cheapest ones I see out there are $40,000 plus. This one is in pretty good condition. I know the seller. This is on Chrono24, but I know the seller personally. I've done business with them. They do a pretty good job. I'm not co-signing them, but I am saying that this watch, I think, is not misleading. A lot of times you see a really great price on a vintage watch and you're like, wow, what is messed up with this watch? But I don't see anything too bad with it. The case is not great, but it looks like this seller did send this over to Eric Koo at LA Watchworks, and they did their number on it. And if you're not familiar, LA Watchworks and Eric Koo are known for developing certain processes to kind of refurbish Rolex watches without taking away too much value. When you start redoing dials and you start putting serious work on cases and doing things like that, you start taking away value because the originality has been removed. But this one looks to be pretty good, pretty original, and I know that LA Watchworks does a great job, so I think there's at least some peace of mind there. But please, ask the seller some questions and do your research on this particular model. If you're not familiar, this reference came out in the 1950s and went on for a period of time before it became the Daytona. This is pre-Daytona, so when you see pre-Daytona, this is generally what people are talking about. Specifically, it's 36 millimeters, so it is a lot smaller than current Rolex Daytonas, but it's wearable by modern standards because it has pushers that make it wear larger than something like a 36 millimeter 1601 vintage Datejust or similar. So still very cool, still very wearable in my opinion. The case on this is not perfect. It's not something that would go to auction at Phillips or Christie's, but this is a watch you can wear and you can have a vintage Rolex chronograph, a very high-end collectible Rolex chronograph for $23,000. Prices have not been like this in a very long time. This is a buy for the right person. Rolling on to a Zenith El Primero Rainbow. I absolutely love this line from Zenith. Zenith came out with this line in the 90s, a lot like other watches that I will be talking about in this list. And this rainbow stands for the name. It was a name of a sailboat, a race sailboat in the 1930s that won the America's Cup. It was kind of a novel and interesting and technologically advanced sailboat for the time, and that's why it won. But nonetheless, Zenith wanted to commemorate this boat for some reason, and I think they did so pretty well. I don't care about the boat, but I care about the watch, and the watches in the rainbow lineup are beautiful. I believe that the prices on these will go up in the future. When we're talking about a $2,400, this is only $2,400. It's on eBay. It has a make an offer. If you get it even lower, wow, great deal. And if this is your listing, I do think it already is pretty attractively priced. But these watches are generally $3,000 for the blue dial. To see it for $2,400, and then you pair that potentially for a certain person out there with PayPal 0% interest. And then eBay is also, they were giving out coupons and incentives to even take further discounts off that. You might be able to score this watch for $2,200. I mean, an El Primero Sports Blue Dial two-tone chronograph for $2,200 looks very modern, yet has some vintage feel to it because it is from the 90s, I think it's a no-brainer, and the price is absolutely great. Next, we have the H. Moser Endeavour small seconds in rose gold. This watch is only $7,600, and typically these go for about $9,000. Now, it's just under 40 millimeters. It's about 39, I think it's advertised at. We've had these at Delray Watch before, and I think that when I measured it, it came out to be about 38.8 or 38.5. But sometimes you see that from manufacturers depending on where they measure it. But nonetheless, it's very wearable as a dressier watch. You can put it on a cool strap and make it casual. That's what I do with my Moser. But absolute steal of a price, I believe. Totally in-house watch. Beautiful movement. Some of the dials, while they look pretty plain on the internet, you get them in person, you put them in the light. Absolutely beautiful. Fully in-house. H. Moser makes everything. It's a brand that I think is doing great things going into the future. Truly limited production watches. Guys, that's a very high-end, independent manufacturer watch. Totally in-house movement, case, everything. H. Moser is a brand that's here to stay. They do a great job, and this is a no-brainer deal for someone looking for an H. Moser, especially in rose gold. Moving on to the Girard Perregaux Laureato. The specific example is 38 millimeters. This watch came out in the last number of years. This is a no-brainer deal as well, $4,700. I think the last one that we had, we probably sold retail at maybe $5,500. This is a great deal, and they don't come up too often. You rarely see Girard Perregaux Laureatos from this generation, recent generation, floating around out on the internet. Not a lot of people bought them at retail, so to get them in the gray market or to get them pre-owned, it's pretty rare. And $4,700, I think it's 15 to 20% less than I've seen this watch go anywhere else. In-house caliber movement, beautiful case construction, very high-end manufacturer. I think that if you compare this watch side by side to certain Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks, most people would not be able to tell a lot of difference. I think it's a no-brainer at a fraction of a price at its competitors, and even for itself, it's much lower than I've ever seen it before. Girard Perregaux Laureato, once again, on eBay. So make sure you look at the listing, and I'm not co-signing the seller at all. And lastly, I have a Breitling watch. Now, many people are going to say, wow, you hated Breitling one video ago, and now you're telling people to buy a Breitling. Let me explain. I don't hate Breitling watches, and it's not even a hate thing. It's more that I don't associate myself with the current Breitling brand, company, or leadership. Personally, for myself, when I buy a product or invest in something or make an investment or spend time on something or associate with something, I personally need to be able to relate. I need their marketing to be relatable for me. I need their leadership team. I need to have confidence in the leadership team. And this is something that I don't recommend for everybody. It might seem crazy to most, right? A lot of people would say, oh, I just like the way this watch looks, and that's fine by me. But you know, I've been collecting for a long time, and now as a watch dealer, I see the industry, I see how things work. And so for me, personally, with watches, I need to have more relation or more association to that product than just how the way it looks. It's just something that works for me. And I know there might be some people that are the same way. Love to hear about it in the comments below. And so when I look at current Breitling, not really for me. The products are pretty good, on par with everything else out there. But when I look at 90s Breitling, like this Breitling Duograph, I really like the products, and I've personally owned a ton of 90s Breitling, and for the last 10, 15 years, they've always been great value buys. Particularly, this Duograph is just cool in so many ways. The main thing that I love about it is as an AM, PM indicator, and that's something that you would see from 90s Breitling chronographs, is they test out these little complications that they just don't do anymore. And it's probably because they weren't purchased a lot, because how useful is an AM, PM indicator for most people? Unless you live in some place like Iceland or high up northern hemisphere where certain parts of the year you can't really tell between night and day just based on when the sun is out. Yeah, it's probably pretty useless, but I think it's cool just having it there. And then when we talk about luxury watches in general, there's a lot of things that are not going to be used a lot, right? Even though this is a chronograph, who is going to use the chronograph? What are you going to be timing? I think, generally speaking, I don't think I've used chronographs very often. I mean, what am I going to use them for that my phone would not be more accurate. So it's just something cool to have. And Breitling also had other complications, right? They had yacht timers on some of their 90s watches. They had moon phases and so many other cool little interesting nuances and dial combinations and things that I just don't really see the brand doing a whole lot anymore. And so for $1,000, I don't really know a cooler, almost vintage or arguably vintage chronograph from a staple name watch brand. I don't know where else you can get that. So once again, take a look at the listings. Let me know what you think about it. Not co-signing the sellers. I looked at this watch and all the others, and I do think that they're all pretty safe, but please do your homework, and that's something I always recommend anyway. But what do you guys think? During everything that's going on with this pandemic, have any of you found some great watch deals? Please leave it in the comments below. I would love to see and hear about the types of watches that you have been able to pick up at great prices or that you might be contemplating. Of course, you can reach me on Instagram, The Real John P, where I try to get back to almost everyone. I try, so I typically do, but it does take some time. And of course, you can check out delraywatch.com, where we do have a hot deals section as well, and we are pricing some watches very attractively during everything that's going on in the world. So thanks so much, guys. Please do not forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. You have been chatting with John P.